Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trace Rocco. Welcome to the Sons of UCF Live. Greetings from San Diego, California. Joined now by one half of the Sons, Adam. Adam, Mike out. I might need to bring in a hot seat for him. A little inconsistent with his attendance.
That's a very fair point. I'll check into that right away. I know Mike is the purveyor of the hot seats, and maybe I can steal one from him and then put him on it. That would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be. Some news out of UCF football today about the spring game and a late afternoon boom. First, the spring game formally announced Saturday, April 16th, high noon at the Bounce House, Easter weekend. So that may be a challenge for some. I know I will be out of town. And Brandon Helwig, UCFsports.com, reporting spring practice. He believes he's hearing set to begin Tuesday, March 15th. Can't come soon enough. We've got to get some of that practice video of nothing happening that we can dissect.
Yeah, Trace, I'm counting on you and Jason Beatty and Brandon and Christian Simmons, Andrew Glukov, somebody out there. I need to see the spirals. I need to see, can John Reese Plumlee actually throw the football? I need to see all that evidence. Look, the springtime's always interesting, right? Because you crave football. Now we've been missing it for a couple of months. The spring game comes and you're always excited about it. And you get there and it's kind of like a glorified scrimmage in a baking hot sun in the middle of April, but it's good to have football to talk about. I don't know what we'll learn from this. I don't know if we'll learn anything depth chart wise, if we'll get a chance to see some of these new guys, but the more you can talk about football, the better off your day is.
Well, and with the transfer portal, the booms keep coming. This afternoon, defensive tackle Lee Hunter out of Auburn. I seen him listed 6'4", 6'5", 290, 310. He goes by at the _ fridge 7. Big guy, ranked 12th defensive lineman in the country. A 4-star comes over from Auburn. UCF South getting all those Auburn guys now.
Yeah, I saw 6'4", 320 as his listed measurables, which is pretty darn big. Obviously, we lost a couple of guys on the D-line front, Kalia Davis namely, so perhaps this guy becomes one of those guys. But, you know, the transfer portal is that great unknown. You think you know something, but this kid has not yet taken a snap as a college football player. And there's some conflicting reports. I know Brandon Helwig from UCF Sports was talking about he may have opted out his senior year of high school, and then there's some reports that he didn't opt out of high school, so I don't know if I have clarity on that, but he hasn't played a down yet of college football. So the measurables look good. The 4-star rating feels good, but we've seen this before with guys coming with some of these bona fides and you don't quite see it on the field. So more depth up front is definitely a good sign. And while it's kind of a comical thing, you got to like the pipeline that Gus is building between, some of that Alabama connection and UCF. The more talent, the better. If nothing else, it pushes another guy to get better. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, reading 4 years of eligibility from him as well. A staying kind of got lost for me. I didn't even think about him in terms of staying. Devon Wilson, safety, announced that he was going to be back for another year. He wasn't someone, with the press conference a week or so ago with the 4 guys coming back, Sam Jackson and Anthony Montalvo. That announcement, kind of forgot about Devon. Good to have him back as well.
Yeah, and his little message that he put out, obviously everyone's got the graphics guy now and the 6 paragraphs and all that stuff, right? And, he mentioned he's got some unfinished business, learned a new position this year, new coaching staff to get used to. So I think it's a good move on his part. To your point, I hadn't thought of that either. I just assumed he was coming back naturally. So to see the graphic initially, I thought, is he going out? But luckily he's coming back. And you got to think the secondary next year is going to be a strength with all the guys coming back, the guys we developed, guys coming off injury, the recruits coming in. You got to think that's going to be a strength for UCF next season.
Yeah, and we've talked about who's entering the portal, and Tatum Bethune is the big loss there. 2 names that go into it this week: running back Demarius Good, linebacker Hercule Latu. I wish them both well. Neither one of them made a significant impact for UCF, and as you can see in these portal pickups, again, until they play, they are names with measurables, right, and stats. But you can see one by one, Gus Malzahn addressing a need.
Yeah, Demarius Good as a kid, obviously, we all liked him. He was a local kid out of Orlando, just never was able to crack. I mean, think about the guys he was always sitting behind. If it wasn't the late Otis Anderson, it was Greg McCrae, it was AK, then it was Bentavious Thompson. Then he, gets to this season. Now he's got Bowser coming in, Johnny Richardson. So he was always just kind of one of those guys caught in probably that 4 or 5 depth chart lane. So hopefully he's a kid who can find a spot to land, get a couple of carries on film, and make a name for himself. And Herkley Latsu, we barely knew you. You just got here last year. I don't believe you played a snap all season, if I saw the stat correct. So Herkley, we barely knew you. He was a big guy, though. I would have loved to have seen how that worked out. I think he was
BYU for a couple of years.
Yeah, he was a massive human being. So we wish those guys both well. I mean, we say this every week: the portal give, the portal take away. 2 guys who are looking for greener pastures. 2 really good guys too. So hopefully they find that option out there.
Yeah, I'd say, though, other than Tate and Bethune, of course, the Dylan Gabriel announcement, I feel most of these guys, wish them well, but not a big loss for UCF. Again, Tate and Bethune, the big one there. We've been doing this show for a year.
Is that right?
A year we've been doing.
Did you get me anything? It's our anniversary. Did you get me anything?
I did not. Missed just one show. I was on vacation the week of the 4th of July, but we have done a year of these. And what better way to celebrate than catching up with Shaquille and Shaquille Griffin? I saw that they had an event, a community event in a park right over by where the Tampa Bay Rays play in St. Pete. It was scheduled for Sunday. There was a threat of inclement weather coming in over the weekend on Sunday, and they moved it to Saturday. I was heading over to Tampa anyway for the basketball game, swung by. Not that it's easy to swing by St. Petersburg. You got to go over the bridge and all of that, but caught up with them. How about the walk and talk? I've been debating whether to retire that thing, and then they joined me in it.
Well, yeah, if you're going to get more guests like that, Trace, you keep walking and talking your way as much as you want, my friend. I think there's a lane for the walk and talk. I would have liked a speaking part on there. I mean, you guys could have rehearsed that better. I mean, it feels like you ad-libbed that out, but I'm going to give you a hard time.
It was ad-lib one take because they got pulled away to do something.
Yeah.
So it was one take.
Are they the most famous walk-in talkers outside of yourself, of course? I mean, where do they rank with Robert Aronoff, or where are they in that list?
Robert's right up there.
Yeah, I know. He's a legend.
Right up there. So caught up with him for a few moments, an interview that we're going to release later, correct? On the
9:15 p.m. exclusive ding interview.
Never
9:15.
Tired of that cliche word.
Can't get away from it. 9:15 on our YouTube page. You will see the full interview, and I think, Trace, we have an excerpt here of that conversation. This is you were talking to both of them, and Shaquille kind of chimed in about what it's like to go back to UCF and what that means to him.
Oh man, it's an amazing experience. It's actually so surreal because I've been gone for so long, and I feel that atmosphere shot back up just out of nowhere. I mean, it gives me goosebumps. It was a cold game. I didn't want to leave the field. I had my family. I had my family in the press box. It was like I can't leave. Like the atmosphere here is like I'm back home. It's like I'm back in college again. And just the love the fans showed. It was amazing. It was a blessing. I'm glad I chose the right school.
Fan favorites, Shaquille and Shaquille Griffin. Again, more of that interview released on the Sun's YouTube channel, which, by the way, when you're over there and you subscribe, check out the extended interview with Josh McMullen. That was a really interesting one. And I love how you guys drew out of him just how much he really likes Mikey Keene at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was, it was hard. He had a light fixture behind the scenes that was working, and then it kind of went out halfway through the interview, so he got progressively darker as the interview went on. I might have seen a tear being shed there. I mean, for a second there, he talked glowingly about Mikey Keene, and I'm not going to play in the rumor mill speculation game, but he also talked about another quarterback, and I'll let you listen to it and decide his feelings as you think about what he said about Mikey and what he said about somebody else. I'll leave that to your imagination. Go to the YouTube page, and you can check all that out.
Andrew Brito?
Yes, no. Andrew Brito.
Yeah. As we keep taking a look at the past season and get ready and get closer to that spring game, I asked on my Twitter handle @SignBez, grade the 2021 wide receivers. We saw a lot of Ryan O'Keefe, and then everybody else, it kind of fell off. 56% said good. I love the folks that say excellent. I think it'd be, to me, between fair and good. Ryan O'Keefe was standout, but there was drop off after that. And we've been talking about, we lose Brandon Johnson, but Gus Malzahn, he comes in, he brings in Kobe Hudson from Auburn with 3 years of eligibility. And then you saw what they did on early signing day, bringing in a couple of signees as well.
Yeah, I was between good and fair as well. I think obviously Ryan O'Keefe takes the mantle as a top receiver. Jay Flash gets hurt. You wonder what his season would have been if he was able to stay healthy. Again, you mentioned Brandon Johnson. I mean, probably an unsung hero on that team. led the team in touchdown receptions. So he's going to be a big spot to fill. But this is the season, I think, if you think about 2021 and flipping the page to 22, we need those transfers that you're talking about, Trace, to really step up and be able to make plays. Deontay Marks and Jordan Johnson, two guys that have come in from Florida and Notre Dame, respectively. And then you mentioned Kobe Hudson. We're going to need those guys to really kind of step up and see what they're made of, because outside of that, it's a relatively inexperienced receiver group. We saw Titus get a bunch of catches. Now he's in UCLA. So it's going to be interesting to see which of those guys step, because I think you understand that O'Keefe and Jalen are going to be 1-2. Amari played at spots and played well. Who's going to step up and be that guy? Is it a Quan Lee who comes in new, or is it a Kobe Hudson, a big guy who's got some college football experience?
A point I believe you made, it was either on Suns Live or on the pod. We talked about the return late in the season of Jay Flash, but he hadn't worked with Mikey Keene, right? You see the chemistry that Mikey has with Ryan O'Keefe. We won't really get insight and clarity on this during spring. We won't get much to see, and we won't be told much, but developing that chemistry and seeing Flash develop that chemistry with Mikey Keene and really become a bigger part of the offense. We knew what he could do with Dylan Gabriel. What can he do with Mikey Keene if, in fact, Mikey Keene is your starting quarterback come fall? So it's interesting. You'd rather have Jay Flash than not have him. And now you got to integrate Kobe Hudson and certainly some talent down the line. Quan Lee and Tyler Griffin, Xavier Townsend. You can see what Gus Malzahn and his staff are doing at the wide receiver position. And I like what I see. But you got to have another guy besides Ryan O'Keefe.
Well, you mentioned that. It'll be interesting. Obviously, is there a quote unquote quarterback competition, right, this spring and this fall? Because, we know we brought in John Rice Plumlee. We know Thomas Castellanos is there. To your point, if you have a competition, who's going to be able to build rapport with these receivers? If we're kind of rotating, quarterbacks in and rotating reps, will you be able to build that chemistry with whoever that quarterback is? So I'm curious, and maybe our next guest can give us some insight on that, how a quarterback competition can actually impact the receivers, because can you really build that chemistry? I think that could be something to watch for as we get into the spring, into the fall.
Yeah, receivers, and as well, we're talking a little bit about tight ends. So we bring in our first guest of the evening. You know him, Michael Colubiali, standout tight end for 6-7 years, however many years it was.
Hey.
Michael, thanks for joining us at the Sons of UCF Live. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Doing well. You came out of school pre-COVID, but imagine if you'd been there during that, you'd have gotten additional time as a result.
I got the full 7 if I was there during this crazy year, past couple of years we've had.
Well, the Suns in their preseason predictions, what was it, Adam? You had 25 catches for tight ends, and I think it ended up at 19. Is that it?
Yeah. Over under was 24 and a half catches for tight ends. We ended with 19, courtesy of Alec Holler.
Yeah, and Jake Hescock moves on. Charlie Browder in the portal off to Tennessee. It's a position you want to see produce more on the offensive side of the ball, don't you, Michael?
Oh, for sure. I mean, a weapon you have, at tight end, really diversifies the offense. Alec Holler, you saw him get some flashes in late in the end of the year, but I mean, if he continues to progress, I was there when he was a freshman. You saw the potential. And he just keeps getting better and better. So, you hope to see more action from that position going forward.
And he had a breakout game against Temple. Gus Malzahn, very active in the transfer portal, also brings in Kimore Gamble from Florida. He could be a difference maker coming up in 22.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's a big body. Alec, I think he's, a 6'1", 6'2". Not saying he can't do it all, but, it's good to have that big body. You saw Jake Hescock this past year, came in a lot during the run game, and that's also a big part of the the offense too. And that's why I think one of the I'm a little biased, but I think the tight end position, the best athletes on the field.
Well, one guy who's maybe second best athlete down on the field is Ryan O'Keefe. And he had a breakout season this past year, 84 catches, was just a man all over the field. When you watch him, Michael, what makes him so good? What stands out to you when you see Ryan O'Keefe play?
Oh, he's just so dynamic. He can get the ball out of the backfield, and, he can burn you down the sideline in the passing game. He's a great player, great threat to have on the offense. I'm curious to see how, Coach Malzahn gets in the ball, in 2022. I feel like we scratched the surface a little bit with using him and his versatility in the Florida game. So, I hope they build on that. I hope they build on, using all the weapons, they got in the transfer portal, and, the guys that are still developing.
Well, we were used to the UCF fast system that was implemented obviously under Frost and then carried over from Coach Heupel. Gus's system seemed a little bit slower this year, but again, you would know better than us. What did you see when you compared the old quote unquote UCF fast to what UCF ran offensively, particularly with receivers this year?
It's definitely different, from being in both systems with Frost and Heupel, but I feel like Coach Malzahn has a little bit of mixture of both of them and a little bit of mixture of pro style, like kind of what Leary ran. I just feel like he tries to get the offense in the right play. It worked at Auburn. It worked at UCF. So I feel like 1 year in the system, we did pretty dang well for the circumstances, the hands we were dealt. Short turnaround, like for spring ball to come up on us fast. I think Coach Malzahn was there for three weeks. It's super hard to install an offense before spring, and time will tell. So I think it's going to get flashier, and it's going to be something to be stopped in 2022.
Before you hopped on with us, we were talking about chemistry. Jay Flash was injured, came back late, trying to develop a chemistry with Mikey Keene, and that we're a couple of weeks away from the start of spring practice. How important is that spring practice time in developing that chemistry?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, you start now. So when January comes around and you're starting your off-season workouts, your winter workouts, this is when you get the extra work in. You're in there late at night in the Wayne Dench, throwing routes, building that chemistry with your quarterbacks. After weights, sometimes the guys stick around and you have routes on air, and you just try to get the timing down. And that's one thing, like I said, I feel like that it was a little bit missing last year, and especially when Jay Flash got out for a while and coming back, there's a whole new quarterback in there. So it was tough, but I feel like they'll get the timing down this off season. This is when you perfect your craft.
We hear about quarterback room, running back room, wide receivers, tight ends. Are they typically together?
You're in different position meetings, but you definitely, when quarterbacks are doing routes on air, you're with the receivers, and when you're doing inside run, you're with the offensive line. So that's why I made that comment earlier. You kind of got to know everything, and it's you're learning from the receiver coach just as much as you're learning from the offensive line coach. So yeah, it's you got to know both.
Michael, UCF has a unique scenario this past season. That the tight ends coach is also the special teams coordinator. As a player, is it a challenge when you have a coach that kind of splits responsibilities? To your point, obviously you're flipping meetings. How much of a challenge, or is that any challenge at all when there's a coach with sort of split responsibilities?
I don't think it's mainly or mostly a challenge. I think it can be a little more tough on the coach. Having to wear many hats, and jump from right from a special teams meeting to a position group meeting. It could be tough for him, but from a player standpoint, it's not nearly as tough. Just just show you have to perform each and every day on special teams in practice, or you're going to hear it in the meeting room with him.
Obviously, we talk about the transfer portal a lot. You were obviously a player for a number of seasons at UCF, and it's a new era, though. I mean, you didn't have to play under this transfer portal stuff. How do you think current players react when you're hearing about the portal all the time, and they're looking at this guy, and they're looking at that guy? Do you think there's anything to, an upset in team chemistry, or do you think kids today just recognize this is just a system we're playing in now?
It's a weird era of college football. I just missed it. I can see where it can get a little tough because it's easy to, say, hey, things get sticky. I'm gonna go see what else is out there. But I don't know. Like it's definitely gonna be something that'll become the new normal, especially with the NIL stuff. But I feel like the guys should commit to the school, not to the coach. So, it's where you want to be, and, whoever can develop you, the best, go for it. But it could definitely, in my opinion, cause a little bit of drama in the locker room. But, I feel like that's where the leadership has to step in and, gather the team, from you have a goal of winning the championship every year. So whoever wants to be here and help build this legacy and this dynasty, let's go for it and get to work.
Well, let's wrap up with this. On early signing day in his press conference, Coach Malzahn talked about how 14 of the 15 guys inked were high school students, and he really sees them as the foundation. You can see how he's using the portal as well. One of those high school signees, Grant Stevens. How much of an impact do you think a true freshman could possibly have in 2022?
No, if he performs well in spring, is he there for spring? I'm not.
Yeah,
he is. He could be a reckoning in the spring. Tristan Hill, when he came, he was an impactful freshman. Andrew Killens, you look back to that era, we won 7-8 games or whatever it was, and next year, beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl 13-0 season. So, it's definitely there. He can come in, step up right away, but nothing's going to be given to him. He's going to have to earn it. So, he's got to get to work now, learn the plays, get after it in the weight room, and he could definitely be a force to be reckoned with.
Well, there have been some pictures that have gone viral. It looks like he's hit the weight room a time or two already. So, Michael Colubiali, fan favorite, former tight end at UCF. Thanks so much for stopping by Sons of UCF Live tonight.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, good to see you, Michael. All right, no one would know more, right, about that position group, and I like what he had to say there about developing the chemistry. And this is a team that's really churning and changing right before our very eyes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though. I mean, he mentioned, you come for a school, not a coach. And I wonder how many people take that approach these days, right? Because you're seeing a lot of guys follow coaches to different places. But listen, if UCF is not successful next season, I think we would all sit here and say it's not a talent issue. I mean, the talent that Gus is bringing in, and it's unfortunate that obviously talent in has to mean talent out in some cases, right? But the talent that we're bringing in, you would suspect that UCF will have the ability to have some pieces to play with. Now, how do they all fit together? How do they all glue? How do they all gel? That's another story. That's why I was really interested to hear his answer about chemistry and what that means, because with the transfer portal, you're sitting at home and you're enjoying a nice Sons of UCF interview on the YouTube page there, and all of a sudden you get a tweet that UCF's after a receiver. You're like, wait a minute, I'm a receiver. So how does that stuff play? I'm curious to see how Gus brings that chemistry together for the entire unit, and even the assistant coaching staff, because obviously they're with the guys almost as much, if not more, than you see Gus Malzahn.
You have to be very active in your communication as well. I know we've been asked in the mailbag in the past about how much of this is Gus and coaches pushing players perhaps into the portal. I think they're right. You'd like to think they're having honest conversations about a kid's chances in the depth chart and what his prospects are. And, you set up a good segue as we turn the page to basketball, right? The talent on this team, can it come together to win? It was a very interesting thread in which UCF Mike was very active and engaged yesterday, talking about Johnny Dawkins. Let's not candy coat it. The loss Saturday in Tampa, embarrassing. Low point of the season, arguably the worst loss in Johnny Dawkins' tenure at UCF. And it looked bad a couple of days ago at East Carolina, down 20. But then they flipped that switch. And that Jekyll and Hyde team, right? Live by the three, die by the three. Brandon Mahan, 19-point second half. You can't say it's not a roller coaster. It certainly is exciting to watch. But it's not clear at this point that this is an NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, it's the inconsistency for me, Trace. You mentioned that the Cows game, that was gross. I mean, it was quite simply just a gross exhibition of basketball. It didn't seem like they wanted to be out there for periods of time. Nothing went their way. And, I talked about this in the show this week. It's a make or miss league. You're going to miss shots. That's what basketball is, right? But you can always rebound. You can always hustle. You can always play defense. You can always go after loose balls. All that stuff seemed to stop against the Cows. And I think that was the more concerning part. Are we going to have nights where we go 2 for 10 from 3? Probably. Are we going to have nights where we go 8 for 10? Yeah, probably as well. So I think that's that's going to be the challenge with this entire process is, are we able to stay consistent? And when those nights are there, when we're not shooting well, can we actually figure out ways to stay in games, to play solid defense and to do things that, that'll happen? I know people are excited about the ECU win, and it's a nice comeback. It's an overtime win. And I don't want to be Mr. Negative here, but I will say this. The main thing you have to do to come back from being down 20 is actually be down 20. And somehow we got down 20. And so I think that's the thing we have to figure out is, how did that happen? how do you take what happened in the second half and overtime, bottle that up, and use that going forward? Because that's going to be the magic of the season. And that second half, that overtime period, you saw fight, you saw heart, you saw guys getting a little emotional on the sideline. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit with BJ Taylor in a few minutes. You saw guys step up like Darius Johnson. You saw guys make shots. So whatever that was in that second half and that overtime, how do we bottle that up? Because that's the secret sauce, quote unquote, that we're going to need if we're going to be competitive and even sniff a tournament run this season.
Well, in the sound bite that I chose from Coach Dawkins, I feel like he's been asked this after games before, and he's provided a response before to this question, right? His response on what he hopes the Knights take away from the ECU win.
Well, one, when you're behind, no lead is insurmountable. You can work your way back in as long as you play smart, as long as you understand time and score, and we were able to do that. So coming back is something that our guys will take from this. They know they can come back and win. They understand what we have to do if we can bottle what we did in the second half execution-wise offensively. I think that'll help us. I thought we were really in a good flow offensively. We moved the ball. We moved our bodies, and guys were able to play off each other really, really well. So that's something I want us to bottle going forward.
But will they? They've got Tulane home Saturday at 2:00. I'm starting to use this phrase, right? Must win, because if not, then you're on the road at Wichita State, which has been a house of horrors. You've talked about it on the podcast. There's a stretch of 4, 5, 6 games that are tough ones on the schedule. Let's dig into this a little bit more with BJ Taylor. He's good enough to join us again this week. You know him, standout at UCF. BJ, welcome into the Sons of UCF Live.
How you guys doing? Thanks for having me back on. Hope you guys are having a good week. It seems like we're missing somebody tonight.
Mike is scared, BJ. He's on that ledge again. He's listening, but we're going to have to draw him back in.
We're going to have to reel him back in. We never want a man on the ledge, not a fellow.
Well, Mike was really active on Twitter yesterday. He's fired up. He thinks that the talent is there, that this is an NCAA tournament team. Why the inconsistency from your vantage point when the way they played in that second half or parts of that second half? That is the team we expected them to be game in and game out. The team that they showed against Memphis, the comeback against Michigan. But how do you lose in Tampa and look so flat on Saturday night?
Well, to start with the USF game, that came down to offensive boards. I mean, you can make it more complicated than it is, but when a team has 21 offensive rebounds and we have 26 total, I think USF finished with around 53 boards. I mean, that's a ton more shots they're getting at the hoop. So combine that with us shooting 2 of 20 from 3 against USF on the road in a rivalry game, that's just really not a recipe for success, right? So I think going into the ECU game, we saw some of those tendencies there in the first half. Kind of as you spoke to, the inconsistency, the ability to not be able to play to the highest level that we can as a team throughout the game. I think it kind of was there in the first half. In the second half, you can tell they went in the locker room, they got it together, and to be quite honest, we made shots in the second half. Like I said, this is a team that right now, when we make shots, we play much better than a team that when if you're missing shots, you have to play defense hard. You have to maybe drive the ball, get to the free throw line. And to be quite honest, that's just not the kind of team that we have. We have a team that is a mostly jump shooting team. We depend on that. We rely on that. So when our jump shots are going and we're able to knock down threes, it kind of creates a rhythm for us, a snowball effect. But when our shots aren't going, we can see how quickly it can go the other way. So I think moving forward, these guys are really going to have to dial it in and know that every night shots aren't going to fall. I mean, you see it all across college basketball, but shots aren't going to fall every night. So we're going to have to find other ways to win and continue to, sort of find ways to be successful.
Well, there was a moment in this ECU game in which a little bit of video was out online of C.J. Walker getting pretty fired up, and I wasn't bothered by it. I thought I saw a fiery streak there that he was trying to, get guys motivated, riled up. And that seems to be that missing piece. When we watched you play, we knew how you were as a leader on the court. Do you see this? You've got a lot of talent in Brandon Mahan, Darius Perry, but do you see that leadership style from them as maybe a missing piece so far this season?
Yeah, no, I think you've kind of highlighted it right there. You have to have player-led ownership to be a successful team, right? In any sport, football, basketball, you hear coaches talk about it all the time, but it's extremely important, right? coaches can only do so much, but the players have to hold each other accountable for what is supposed to be done on the court, because we're the ones playing, right? It's 5-on-5. It's us 5 against their 5. Coaches can put in a scheme. They can implement different strategies. They prepare us throughout the week. But at the end of the day, we have to go out there and when we have to perform, right? So when you speak on that fire that you're looking for, that you may have seen in past teams, my years, we kind of had that. And it really comes down to just not being afraid of conflict, right? You have to be able to hold your teammates accountable, and you have to be able to tell them, hey, man, we need you to pick it up. You might not say those exact words, might be a few expletives in there, but hey, same idea, right? We gotta pick it up. We gotta get it going, right? We're a better team than this, but you have to come into the game with a mentality and understand that every night in conference play, when you're on the road, it's going to be a challenge, right? I can't recall my teams went in the Coach Dawkins era, we never lost to USF. We went 8-0 or 9-0. We never lost to USF. Every time we played USF at home at UCF, beat them by 15 or 20. Every time we played USF at USF, it was a dogfight for whatever reason. It would come down to, maybe I had to make a play at the end, or we had to make some free throws, whatever. For some reason, it was going to be a dogfight, right? But as a leader, you have to kind of bring those things to the forefront so your teammates are prepared and you're prepared yourself for the battle that's ahead.
You mentioned it about the Cows game, BJ, 53 rebounds for them. ECU had 42 points in the paint. Is it just a matter of we don't have the size as some of these other teams, or is there something schematically that you think we could do to try to shore up sort of the inside of the paint?
I think we've seen us rebound well, right? We've had games where even, like I said, again, ECU had a dominant big down there. They had a big guy. He played well, but the boards that game was 35-32. So it was, a 3 rebound difference, which isn't significant. In the USF game, there was a significant difference in the want to, right? And again, as players, that's kind of what I was just speaking on. You have to bring it, right? You have to know USF is 0-3 in the conference, right? They are 5-10 on the season, and now they're getting a chance to play us. They're playing their rival. That doesn't mean that they're going to go out there and play bad. The fact that they're 0-3 means that they are hungry. They are starving for a victory, right? So there's no better way than to make a game close than to just dominate the offensive glass, right? Adam Trace, if I told you guys, it takes no skill to go out there and just hustle after a rebound, right? You missed a shot, we go chase it down. Missed a shot, we go chase it down. At some point, somebody's probably going to make something. So to answer your question, I don't think it's a size thing. I think we have the ability to do it. It's the sort of the will, the want to, the consistent effort, night in and night out that it takes to sort of be successful.
All right, let's talk about something positive for a second. Dre Fuller Jr., a guy who played a ton of minutes in the previous seasons, probably isn't playing as many minutes as he wants this year, but in the ECU game, plays 14 minutes, scores 12 points. Talk about how hard it is for a guy like that who's not sure what his minutes are going to be. Some nights he plays a little bit, sometimes he doesn't play at all. To come into a game like that and stay ready, what does it tell you about a player like Dre Fuller who's ready to answer the bell whenever it rings?
No, you got to give a lot of credit to Dre, right? I mean, that says a lot about his, personal self-determination by staying ready, his willingness to prepare for games, even if, he, like you said, he doesn't know exactly how many minutes he's going to get. I think what you're highlighting, it kind of brings a bigger point for this team. And I was speaking on 96.9 The Game with Brandon Kravitz yesterday, and I kind of brought this up. On this team, we have about 10 guys that get in our rotation, right? So as a player, every night, you're going to have an opportunity to perform. You're going to have an opportunity to produce, a chance to play, right? And you don't get that on our teams. I've been on teams where we played 7 guys, and the other 5 or 6, they knew they keep the shooting shirts on, fellas. They don't even, you're not going tonight. You just knew. But this team, every night, our 10 guys in our rotation, I can run them down from our starting 5 to CJ Walker off the bench, Darius Johnson off the bench, as you said, Dre Fuller, Jameel Reynolds, and Ty Freeman. These guys are going to get in the game and get a chance to show what they can do, right? So every single one of our players should go into every game prepared, because you're going to get a chance. It's not a 6-7 man rotation. When I was there, coach had that thing to a 6-7 man rotation. A lot of times we didn't get a ton of subs in. But this team, everybody should stay prepared, because as a player, all you can ask for is an opportunity to contribute, and you're going to get that. So every player on this team should be ready for his moment.
A lot of fans are fired up about the loss in Tampa. Talk about Coach Dawkins and his style. Some people are questioning whether this team can go to the next level with him. You played for him. What's he like as a coach?
Well, first off, Coach Dawkins has been incredible for UCF. No matter where you stand on, your personal opinion on his tenure, he's been incredible. This is the most successful 6 years that UCF has ever had. That's a fact, and that's not an opinion. Number two, he's a guy who's going to bring it the same way every day, right? He has a standard. He knows what he wants the team to be capable of, and he knows what the team needs to do to succeed, right? I've never seen Coach Dawkins get on a roller coaster of emotions in terms of, okay, we won, now it's time for us to chill, or we lost, now it's time for us to turn it up. No, he truly is the same guy every single day, right? I think the biggest thing is, for this team and, speaking to our fan base, because we're extremely passionate, and I love our passion. We have we're, like I said, we have great fans in terms of being passionate, and we want to see our team succeed. But for the fans and whoever has a gripe, I would just say you need to look at what the coach is responsible for and understand that Coach Dawkins is doing what he's responsible for as a coach. I mean, it's weird for me to feel like I have to sort of defend that, but he's definitely doing what he's responsible for. This team knows what it's capable of doing, right? We've seen this team have its moments where they've been exceptional, right? So if I'm in the locker room as a player, I'm like, guys, we know what we have to do. We've practiced. We've done it all. I mean, listen, Trace, Adam, nobody practices more than college basketball. I can tell you that right now. You practice all summer. You go to fall practice. You have a month of preseason practice before the season starts. Then you get into pre-conference play. And now these guys are 6-7 games into conference play, right? There isn't much more, I guess, elaborate coaching that's going to be done by any of the coaches in the country, right? The players at this point are going to have to, sort of take ownership of the team and really decide how far they want to go. And my last point would be this. The first time I was on the show, you guys asked me, did I think this team was a tournament team, and did I think we were capable of achieving that? And I told you that yes, we are capable of going to the tournament, right? But that's not really what matters. What matters is what this team is willing to do to achieve that goal, right? So the willingness to prepare right every day, the willingness to hold each other accountable, the willingness to have conflict with each other. It's extremely important. It can't be overlooked, because you asked me if we're capable, and I'm sorry to give such a long-winded answer, guys, but you asked me if we're capable. We are, but there's probably 110 teams in the country that are capable, that have the talent. So it's going to come down to those little things that are going to make a difference for us down the stretch. And I'm rooting for us, and hopefully we can, get those things done.
How much of the inconsistency, though, falls on coaches and coaching? You just said that players have got to decide what they want and how they want to play.
Yeah.
What responsibility do you hold Coach Dawkins and his staff to getting those players motivated?
Well, I would say this, number one, and I mentioned this again on 96.9 The Game yesterday with Brandon, and this isn't about Coach Dawkins. This is a general coaching statement in general for coaches in all sports. You see it across football, basketball, whatever you like, you see it. Coaches often get too much credit for some wins, and they get too much blame for some losses, right? I'm going to say that again. They get too much blame for some win. They get too much credit for some wins and too much blame for some losses. And what I mean by that is, whenever something goes wrong, the first thing we do as fans, because we're passionate and we care, is we blame the coach, right? Everything is the coach's fault. Oh, the guy's not making shots. Oh, I guess the coach didn't do a good enough job. Oh, this guy doesn't have energy tonight. I guess it's the coach's fault, right? And then when the team succeeds and the team, wins, and the guy makes shots, it's like, oh, I guess the coach must have done something different, right? Coaches set the culture for the program, right? They set the direction of the team. They hold everyone accountable for what their responsibilities are within the program. That they definitely do that. You can't succeed without great coaching, right? But when it comes down to those 40 minutes on the court between the lines, at the end of the day, the players have to perform. They really do. And I'll give you a good example. I was watching ESPN First Take just on Monday after everybody's roasting the Cowboys and everybody's on their back, as they should. Michael Irvin said, listen, we can talk about Mike McCarthy, we can talk about Jerry Jones, but The stars didn't show up for the Cowboys. Dak Prescott didn't show up as he should. CeeDee Lamb, Ezekiel Elliott, all these guys, right? At the end of the day, the players have to perform, especially when we've seen the success, right? Once you've had the success as a player and as a team, it's kind of on you guys to really bring this thing together, right? And we still have the opportunity to do that. So I'm really hoping that moving forward that we can, get this thing moving right towards March, because as you said, it's a sense of urgency time. It really is.
All right, BJ, we have a question from one of our listeners. I'll put it up on screen for you. It's John who says essentially, hard to be consistent when your best player isn't the same guy from game to game. When things get tough, no one knows who to turn to. Is there, in your mind, is there some truth in that statement?
Well, no, he's correct. I think he's right, and that's what I spoke to. This team is trying to find consistency from game to game. That's really what we're looking for. If you look at successful teams across the country, they have a nucleus of guys, a core 2, 3, maybe 4 that they know every single night. I can count on this guy to give me what he's supposed to give me. It might not even be 20 points, but I know he's going to give me his 8 boards. I know when he's guarding the post, he's going to do what he's supposed to do. I know that he's going to bring it defensively, right? You're looking for the consistency in our guard play right now, and moving, like I said, moving forward into March, we have to be able to find that. We have to be able to do those things, because without it, it's very tough to be successful, right? I mean, again, my last season, we could depend on our nucleus. We had Aubrey Dawkins, who was going to play his role as, a great shooter, good transition player. We knew Taco was going to man the paint and be big down there and dominate the low post. And if a game was close, we counted on me to close it out. And we knew if it was a 4 or 5 point game, we felt comfortable that, hey, we could put the ball in my hands and I'll bring us home, right? So, you have to sort of earn, that responsibility, but the guys definitely have to be consistent. And as a player, that comes down to what you're doing, day in and day out, the self-determination and the self-responsibility you take in your own game to continue to improve and be prepared for a game night in and night out. What's your mentality going into the game? Are you prepared? Did you watch the film? Do you know how to attack the other team so that you can be successful, which in turn makes the team successful, right? It's very difficult for a coach, again, and you see this in football a lot. You might have an extremely talented quarterback, right? He's extremely talented, but you never know when he might just throw a completely errant pick. You know what I mean? You have no clue. You're like, he's talented, great arm strength, guy can move, he's mobile, he moves, he good, he does everything, from a physical standpoint, great. But you just never know when he might just throw a jump ball, throw an errant one. It's hard for a coach to kind of teach a player to be consistent. A lot of that comes down to your own, again, preparation, self-determination, and what you're doing day in and day out to prepare the games.
When you're not doing skills training, are you available for corporate gigs, motivational speaking? Because I think any office would love to have you come in and fire them up.
Listen, I'm available for anything that anybody wants me to show up to. I'm a retired former athlete, so anything that is available, I will be there, and I would love to do it.
Nick Patty may need to watch out. I think maybe BJ becomes our football analyst too. He's got some pretty good football knowledge as well.
What you guys don't know is, number one, my dad was a college quarterback. He played 4 years of college football, and I played football until I was 15. I played varsity football my freshman year of high school, and I watched college football every Saturday, all day. College game day at 10 until the Pac-12 comes on at 10 o'clock at night here for the time. I catch it all, fellas. I'll catch it all. So
see you later, Nick Patty.
All right, Nick, you've been put on blast there. We may have a football analyst.
Listen, short story. This is, again, because I had the football background. I think I've told Trace this before. So when I was in middle school, Nick was in high school at Dr. Phillips. And I would go to at least 3 or 4 games a year and watch Nick Patty. They had Demetrius Hart at running back, who went to Alabama, and they had Clinton Dix playing safety. And it was some of the best high school football I've ever seen. So I could never take Nick's job as a football analyst. He got that on lock, trust me.
But he could take Mike's job. I'm just floating that just here as we thank you again, BJ, for being on with us this week. Tulane Saturday at Wichita State Wednesday. Maybe we'll get back with you a week from now and regroup on maybe a 2-0 week for the Knights. BJ Taylor, thanks for being
Thursday,
here.
guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, BJ.
All right. Anytime Mike's out, we're having auditions. We had Biggie in the seat and BJ.
It's just too bad BJ can't get more excited about stuff. And it's just too bad he's so low key. I wish maybe some more energy next time. I don't know.
Let's go around the kingdom real quick before we get into those mailbag questions. Women's basketball receiving votes now. They take care of business with the Cows. They get the 3 points in the War on I-4 rivalry. They had a game scheduled for Wednesday, postponed COVID issues at SMU. At Cincinnati Saturday, back home against Tulane on Wednesday. They're giving up less than 50 points a game. And if you're doing that, you're going to be in games. So receiving votes should be ranked, really. Tennis is underway. Men 11th ranked. They dropped theirs to 8th ranked Georgia. They are at number 1 ranked Florida on Sunday. 11th ranked women's tennis opens against Penn on Saturday. Congratulations to Latasha Smith, the AAC Track Athlete of the Week. Indoor track season underway. And a big welcome. You had her on the podcast. You need to re-release that, perhaps, that interview with Michelle Akers, soccer legend, perhaps the greatest athlete, really, in UCF history, joining the NWSL's Orlando Pride as an assistant coach under new head coach Amanda Cromwell, who used to be the UCF women's soccer coach. Speaking of UCF women's soccer coach, Tiffany Roberts-Zahadak today named as an assistant coach for the U.S. women's national team during training camp. So we are starting to heat up. Softball, baseball right around the corner as well. All right, mailbag time. Guess what we've got? We've got a little walk and talk.
What?
Roll it.
What's up, UCF Biggie? Out here on a walk. Had me thinking, you know the saying, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Shame on you, UCF basketball, because you're shaming on all of us because we fooled us. Every single time you win one, you win a good one, what do you do? What do? You tease me. You tease me to believing. So my question to you is, sons of UCF, what's missing? What is it that's missing? Because we got seniors. We're not a young squad. This isn't something new. We've seen it before. So why are we having repeats again, huh? Repeats. Same players, same repeated actions and results? I don't know, but I want to know. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you change it? Because it's frustrating, man. It's frustrating.
Got some basketball questions in addition to Biggie's at 397. What's the number one problem with the men's basketball team? Talent, coaching, player leadership at DIKAIA Knight. A lot of letters there. Does UCF Mike have Dawkins hot seat set to high sear or pizza oven hot? I am not on camp. Dawkins needs to go. I support what BJ just said there, that this has been the greatest stretch in the modern era. No disrespect to the Torchy Clark timeframe, but that's apples to oranges from where we are now. And I think what BJ talked about, I think what we saw in that outburst from CJ Walker, this is a team, maybe it's Darius Johnson's team at some point. This is a team that needs leadership. And I don't know here on the 20th of January with some important games coming up that those leaders are necessarily Darius Perry or necessarily Brandon Mayhem.
Yeah, we talked about this in the pod this week, Trace. It's interesting to identify who is that leading player. Who is that guy? Clearly, like BJ was the guy when he was there, right? You can think back. Dexter Lyons was a guy when he was there. You go back to all the great teams and all the great players. You can think of that guy. And this team, I think the question earlier that was asked is it's night to night. Who's going to be that guy? Who's going to step up? I will say this, for a true freshman, the way that Darius Johnson got in the huddle, got CJ Walker out of there, was calming him down, was bringing him back to the huddle, basically having him sit back down, listen to coaches. That showed a lot of maturity for a true freshman. To your point, I'm not saying he's the leader. I'm not saying that he's going to be that guy, but I definitely thought that was interesting. And the hot seat thing, listen, certainly things are not going as consistent as we thought they were going to be. At some point, there needs to be an examination of why that is. I don't know that Johnny's an inconsistent coach game to game, right? Is he like, hey, yeah, this game, let's run this game plan. And next game, we'll do this one. There's some consistency there. For whatever reason, that's not sinking in. And I think that's where you have to figure out, is that a player issue or is that a coach issue? And the reality is we've seen our players be a little too streaky for me to say it's fully a coach issue. Do I think that there's opportunity for that team to get better? Yes. Would I like to see Johnny get up and maybe, get a phantom technical foul to fire the guys up? Yeah, maybe. But is that going to guarantee a win? No, it's not. So I think it's a little 50-50. I think it certainly is a good idea to do some analysis, do some deep dive. Who are your leaders? What can we do differently? And if the seat is warming, I think that's fair, because you can't lose to the cows like that. That's just not what we do here. So I think there's some pressure that can be brought to bear, but I don't know that I have the pizza oven seat on. I don't know that Mike does or doesn't. I think Mike just wants consistency. And if that's a Dawkins issue, then I think Mike would be all for Dawkins potentially going on that hot seat.
I just don't see that this consistency issue is going to solve itself unless Darius Perry or Brandon Mahan decide to be 40 minutes night in and night out. We'll see what they do Saturday. Mary Ashbaugh 6. What's it going to take for the women's basketball team to get ranked? I just don't get it. Brand, right? It's just not a brand in women's basketball, and rankings are based a lot of times. We see it in football, other sports. Brand. All they can do is keep doing what they are doing, holding teams to under 50 points a game and them being consistent, right? That has been a trademark. When you talk about maybe a contrast between Coach Abe and Coach Dawkins, certainly under Coach Abe, there's been a consistency, a tenacity on defense that has been a hallmark of her teams. And we need to see more of that defensive intensity that we saw the Knights play against Memphis a week or so ago. Will we see it on Saturday? Don't know. At NightFan94, who wins the Big 12 championship first, UCF football or women's basketball? Football. Because women's basketball, there are only, there aren't 10 deep, really great teams, and those couple dominate the heck out of the sport.
Yeah, Baylor obviously being in the Big 12 is a huge roadblock, right? Similar to our UConn problems for all those years. And I'll go basketball. What the heck? I'll roll the dice. I'll go women's basketball.
At Golden Knight _2. Haven't seen you in a while, Golden Knight. Welcome back. Still trying to wrap my head around the transfer portal, its value, but would you rather get a 5-star athlete transfer from another school that has no stats? Kind of got one of those today, right? Or a 4-star that committed to you from the start and signed his, letter of intent?
I'm going to do a math equation here. I'm going to go with the 5-star transfer because he can't go anywhere. Now he's ours. The 4-star who's committed to us in today's day and age, you got to keep re-recruiting your current player. So if I'm getting this transfer guy, this is his first one-time free transfer. I now have him for the rest. I guess I'll roll the dice there because it's easier to not have to keep re-recruiting your own players.
At S. Morrow, what are the pundits saying about our trajectory under Gus so far? Predictions on where we could be at the end of this recruiting cycle. By the way, now you see anything that Gus does gets posted by the national media, right? Just the value of being here. UCF gets a lot of credit in the national media landscape with every boom. Speaking of booms, by the way, it was not the Gus Malzahn account that released that boom this afternoon. It was UCF football. Haven't heard anything in a couple of days. Again, continued good wishes and thoughts, prayers, if that's how you believe, for Coach Malzahn's wife, Christy, mentioned a couple of days ago, recovering from an infection is what UCF released. But note, the boom did not come from Gus today, no doubt, concentrated and concerned with family. At Rejoice Knights, what holes do we need to fill on the football team this coming season, especially to have some depth? I think he's been addressing it. Now, whether to your satisfaction, perhaps the quarterback is who you'd want to see. I think he's been addressing need by need.
Yeah, I thought about the only thing I wrote down was defensive end. I feel like we've shorn up the middle of the line. D end. I know we have Traymon Morris-Brash, Josh Seliskar, but I don't know who's behind those guys. So maybe on the D end side, so I feel like we at least have gotten some interior help. So I'll go D end. I would have gone linebacker, but I think we brought some guys in there. It's definitely not running back. O-line's been solidified. Secondary looks pretty solid. So I'll go D end specifically just because you're making me pick one. And kicker maybe.
Colton Boomer.
Punter,
maybe. By the way, say Colton Boomer on his Twitter with a longboard. I don't want to see him on a skateboard. I want him in bubble wrap. I don't want to see
get a helmet at least.
Yeah, I don't want to see a kicker on a skateboard. At Night _Merchant, UCF joins the Big 12 in either 23 or 24, with the earliest opportunity 17 months away. What needs to happen, and how soon will we know? Interesting CBS article out, CBSSports.com article out this week with maybe possible divisions that was interesting. I know that's not answering the question, but the possible Big 12 South of UCF Baylor. UCF knows Baylor. They beat them. Houston keeps that rivalry. TCU, Texas. We've seen Texas in the bounce house before. Texas Tech, West Virginia would be your Big 12 South. Maybe it's as Oklahoma and Texas go, but it doesn't look like that's being worked out. I still wonder if they stay to the full length of that time or whether they leave, but they're floating this idea of 14 teams. They're all negotiating that, right? It's certainly not going to be in this 22 year. I think the thought internally is still that it would happen in 23. It's just a dollars thing, right? What they negotiate with the AAC.
What needs to happen here is money. I don't know. Do people still write checks? Because somebody from UCF or the American has to run over with one of those big checkbooks, one of those Happy Gilmore checks, and bring it over to the Big 12 or whoever it's owed to. Is that's really the holdup at this point? Is the money game? And whose lawyers can negotiate the best?
Lonely B was asking about how you see the tight end position shaking out. I think that Alec Collar's going to give a run for it, but you bring in the Florida kid. There's some competition, and that's what you want, right? You want competition at every position.
Well, I can't imagine Keymore Gamble came here to block, right? So
Yeah.
I have to assume that part of
Does he have 1 year? Does he have 1 year of eligibility?
Yeah, he has 1 year left. Yep. I can't imagine Gus was like, dude, you're going to be great on the end. Just start mowing down deep. I don't think that was the sales pitch. So I hope that means Gus was showcasing, highlighting how he wants to leverage the tight end in his system. And obviously Keymore Gamble fits that bill. I mean, Holler played well in stretches we had him, but I don't know that we went to him as much. So again, I can't imagine Keymore is here to set the edge every play.
At Austin F, what home game are you most excited about next season? Louisville.
I said Cincinnati, man. We need some revenge. I mean, their fans have talked a lot. Obviously, they got to the college football playoff. They've now taken that mantle as the best group of five, quote unquote, team. So I think we need a sweet old fashioned revenge game. So I think Cincinnati. Hopefully, it's a primetime style game. I think that's a good one to be at.
At Statboy Drew, Andrew, what's your comfort food after a loss? And Joyce then followed with, and does it differ depending on which sport is in season? Comfort food after a loss. I don't know. I don't know that I have one.
I'm not sure why nachos isn't the correct answer. Nice, but
you got a plate of nachos after the Navy loss.
I might have. I have very few recollections. In terms of beverage, I don't have a beverage I want to point out, Trace. But for Christmas, one of the wonderful people at my work got me something called a Brewmate. It is this contraption that looks like it's kind of like a koozie, but it's metal on the inside. You put it in your fridge, you make it cold, you put your drink in there. That thing stays cold for hours. So I don't care what it is I'm drinking. If I have the Brewmate, I'm all good. And by the way, the answer is seltzer. But if I have a Brewmate, I think I'm all set on that too. So that's my answer, Joyce, or UCF 365. I think it's Tony. Get me a Brewmate and you can give me whatever you want.
Yeah, UCF 365 asking what's your favorite mug to drink your beer or your seltzer. Robert, who ceded the walk and talk space to Biggie this week, and we encourage you, send in your walk and talk. We'll play it on the show. First, his question is, Adam, what was for breakfast?
Yeah. Yogurt and a protein bar. Every day we start off with some yogurt and a protein bar.
And then he adds, which seems to have caught some interest, even Shaquille Griffin today weighing in on Twitter. After listening to this week's pod, I need to know the size and locations for the proposed matching tattoos. Yes. Could you remind folks? I'm sure everyone watching has listened to the pod, but if they haven't, this has been floated. I don't know that I have agreed.
Available where you get all your fine podcasts. So Josh McMullen this week revealed to us that several of the offensive linemen have the words "thick fellas" tattooed on their bodies. I think at various locations. He didn't reveal all those, nor did I want to ask where the word "thick fella" may be located on.
You did ask how it was spelled, though. I laughed at that.
Yes, 2 C's or a K. I want to get the spelling correct. So somehow Mike then posited that perhaps the three of us should get Sons of UCF tattoos, kind of as a bond, similar to the O lineman. I then stated that ain't happening unless we get 10K YouTube followers. So that's where I'm at, 10K YouTube followers. Then it's a consideration. Robert is all in on when does he start the campaign? How much does the billboard cost? He's going to, at this point, I think he may try to do them himself, which I'm not sure is a great idea. So that is where the tattoo thing, Trace. Mike has you as an ardent, non-tattoo living member of society. I'll agree with him. I think he was a really very insistent upon that. So can you confirm or deny the tattoo element of one Trace Trocco?
No tattoos, no particular opposition to them, no tattoos.
Okay.
when I was in local TV news, I used to participate in a thing called the Reading Buddies program where I would talk at local schools. And one school had a challenge that if they read 250 books or whatever it was, that the teacher and the principal, they were going to douse chocolate syrup and whipped cream all over and make them into banana splits. And so they challenged me to do this. Well, I don't want to do this, right? So I said, oh, the challenge is 250. If you read 2,000 books, it was going to be impossible. Darn it if these kids didn't do that, and if I didn't have to get doused. So I am reluctant to embrace the 10,000. We're a long way away from that.
I know we are. I know.
We're a long. I would throw in the further caveat that that there has to be a deadline. It can't be indefinitely. So regroup with Mike if in fact he's not
that's my that's my ally on this is regroup with Mike. Okay.
Regroup with Mike. Let's see what the 10,000 YouTube subscriber challenge consists of, and a deadline. So it can't be indefinite. Where it happens. Not that it wouldn't happen soon, but from where we are now.
After that Griffin interview, Trace, it's just going to take right off. You know what I mean?
Segue, right?
9:15.
Reminder, coming up shortly. Follow the Sons of UCF YouTube channel, which is to me a big mouthful to say, but you'll hear from Shaquille and Shaquem. You'll see Josh McMullen, other content on there. I like what you're doing with that, bringing that element out of the podcast and thrown out there, because it brings you maybe a different audience and you get to see him, which is it's been
interesting. Like the Josh McMullen interview, right? The question about Mikey Keene, it's really his facial reaction and kind of the way he backs away from the computer and kind of puts his head down. So we've enjoyed doing the video stuff. Obviously not everybody is going to have the ability to join us via video, so we'll try to do those as much as we can. But 9:15 Sons of UCF YouTube page, YouTube channel, get on there, subscribe. You will see Trace with the Griffins. About a 6-7 minute conversation, talks a lot about their their charitable endeavors and what they're doing, why that's important to them. Some UCF talk, some Jaguars talk. Does Trace ask about Urban Meyer? You're gonna have to tune in and find out.
Did I forget now. It's been so many days and I've been traveling. So I want to thank Michael Colubiali, always a great one to have on the show. Of course, BJ Taylor, he's a little outspoken. We miss Mike this week, celebrating a year of the Sons of UCF Live. Couldn't do it without you, Adam. Couldn't do it without all of you who watch us, listen on the replays, send in your questions, your walk and talks. You've made this a really special hour that we get to spend with you every week.
Yeah, no, big thanks to everyone out there who listens and follows. It's amazing to me. I have 2 young children. I can't get them to listen to me for 5 minutes, yet you people have invested an hour for 52 straight weeks. So I don't know what you're doing wrong, what I'm doing right, what they're doing right. I have no idea. But the Sons of UCF does not exist without you all. So many thanks, and stick with us. We'll try to do some more fun stuff in the next 52 episodes.
All right. We look to welcome Mike back in next week. We will see you Thursday between 8 and 9, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. For Adam, I'm Trace Trelko. Go Knights, everyone.